Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidty, Swanee and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, how are we?
Doing all right.
Hungover. Let's be honest.
Why are we hungover and dusty?
One of our friends had a hens night last night.
Indeed, she did.
She forced us to drink.
A lot.
I didn't force anyone to drink. What a lot of nonsense. Were we a little bit overexcited because it might have been the first time that all of us, first time that Swanee and Clarkey and we met each other.
Yep.
Yes.
And first time we were all in the same physical location.
Yes, that
Correct.
too. Very exciting. I'm actually sitting next to Swanee right now. It's very exciting.
I know, and now we're on the electrolytes, if that needs
Yeah.
any introduction. I think you've just given
further
an
explanation as to how
explanation.
hungover you are.
But we do have a wine chaser.
All right, so I suppose that's our exciting news, is that we're actually all together and tomorrow's, mine and Tony's wedding. As a result of that, we have a house full of people over from England, which has been just sensational. And I've got Swanee over from Perth, and just reminded me I haven't written my thank you speech yet, so I must do that after this. So it's all been very nice. So I thought, shut up. Do you guys have any other news that you'd like to talk about?
Nothing.
You are the news. No.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like the ship is the destination. The Schmidt is the destination. All right, well, what are we drinking?
Electrolytes.
We had 700,000 litres of gin and stuff.
Electrolytes, yeah.
And a delightful Pinot Gris from Delatite Winery.
Yeah, and it's the first time we're all drinking the same drink because Clarkey was on his way back through that region yesterday and I actually just jokingly said, go to Delatite and get some of their lovely Gris and whatever, and he did. All right, so as I was sort of starting to say earlier, but, then realised I'd jumped the gun, I've got this household of English people and today I'm doing the story and I thought, yes, it's a wedding special, but then, who wants to be boring and do a wedding story? So I'm not doing a wedding story. I'm doing a story, though, that hails from the same part of the country as all of my English friends who are visiting me now, because when I lived in the UK, these were like my neighbours and Kelly, who sat next to me as a special guest star for a moment, and Jacqueline and Kane, and all these people come over, and they all have these sensational accents. So, in the past I've made some effort at doing when we did Swindon Nights, I tried to do the West Country accent, but I'm terrible at it. It doesn't matter how long I was there. But I do have some experts who are going to help me with the story, and we're going to start with Kel, and then later on we're going to have some other guest stars join us. But before I go any further, my sources for the story were bbc.com, yahoo.com, thedailymail.co.uk, Coffee House Crime, which is actually would you call it a podcast? I don't know, it's a YouTube thing, and itvwestcountry.com.
Oh.
There you go. I do actually have some material which comes from the judiciary.co.uk. So before I start the story, we need to do some translation work so that everyone knows what's being said, because I tell you what, when you're in the West Country, there are times where people talk to you and you think, I thought everyone in England spoke English. But no, not always. And this is not particular to the West Country. There are dialects all over the UK, which makes it part of the fascinating, what's the word?
The charm.
Fabric.
Yeah,
the charm,
it's the
that's
charm,
right,
isn't it?
yeah. So Kelly's very kindly come in and she is going to do some West Country translation for me into a Bristolian and Somerset accent. So I'm going to say the English expression in the Queen's English, and Kelly's going to say what it is in Somerset/Bristolian. Okay, so Kelly, you ready? Firstly, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right, I'm Kelly from near Bristol.
Yeah.
Bristol.
Yeah.
Bristol.
That's it. Okay, so the first expression I have, or question I have, is where would that be?
Where that to?
Oh, look at you.
Okay.
And where would you be off to, my young friend?
Where you going, Mabala?
Oh my, that is really lovely.
Gert Lash.
Oh,
That's one of my favourites. Thank you kindly, bus driver. And this also works for cab drivers.
Cheers, Drive.
How are you, my dear friend?
All right, me old mugger.
oh, that's a good one.
And last one, I'm off to the city for a spot of shopping.
Gotta find summer downtown.
That's it, yeah. Just looking at it like, what have you written there? Yeah, going to find Summit downtown. No, see, I immediately went into something else. Summit downtown, can't do it. All right, so that was Kelly's moment of glory on Trial by Wine. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate your time.
Problem.
She had 2 minutes. You may stay if you want to, but you can leave also if you want to. It's your choice. Do you want to stay for a bit?
How's he doing up there?
He's good.
How's the
He's
little
a
one?
cane. He's good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
They've
Kelly's
been
also
Very
brought her
cute.
3-year-old.
They've been sort of tiptoeing around. They're like making a little game out of
They're
it. It's all
trying to be
good.
really
Yeah.
quiet.
It's all good. They're outside.
And yeah, so if I don't edit it out, you might hear some thump. That's Kelly's 3-year-old running around the house.
Yeah.
He is divine.
He's behaving himself beautifully.
Okay, so now we have an appreciation for the sound of Somerset. Let's do a little of Swanee's favourite, map time.
Oh, map time.
Oh, she goes straight for her phone.
Oh, no, yeah. Where are we going?
Well, last night at the hens night, there was a conversation about map time, and I laughed at the fact that Swanee coined the phrase map time and how much Paul hates it. So I thought I absolutely had to inject it into this story when I got up this morning to write it. Okay, so we find ourselves in Barrow, which is not far from Western Super Nightmare, situated on the sea and not far from Bristol. It looks like a lovely place to live.
How's it spelled?
Did you say
Berrow?
Did you say
and it's
Western
bird.
Super Nightmare?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's actually Western Supermare, but
Remember that?
another friend of mine once called it Western Super Nightmare.
I'll
I
show you.
thought
It's
it was
right
funny.
on the. That's right on the edge.
It's on the Bristol Channel. Yeah, it's 37 miles from Frome, which is where I lived for the majority of the time I was there. So, and if you just point yourself west and drive straight across 37 miles, you will hit Barrow, which is just on the Bristol Channel.
Would you hit other things?
Yes, you will.
Is the Bristol Channel that bit of water between there and Wales?
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's right. And I suppose I was thinking about this.
Room
Would
here
you call it a panhandle? I feel like it's a panhandle if it's America.
We can on our map I've just put Western Supermare, but we can see Troe and Frome in our map. So
Trovegas.
it's further west.
I think you'll find it's called Trovegas.
Trovegas. That's a bit like
Yeah.
that. So where we
And then, so London came from Bridgewater, which is south of Barrow. Yeah, so if you look further down south, but sort of across from Taunton, you'll see Bridgewater. London is a dog.
I just thought it was nice that we
anyway.
could see Frome. Anyway, that was more important.
Yeah. So in Barrow, we find our players in today's story, Penelope and David Jackson. And like many domestic tales from the Wild West, this is a little complicated. So I tried to find out where Penny was born, but I couldn't because, no one puts it anywhere. And it's funny because later on I was watching some footage where she probably did say that, but it was all redacted. Judging by her accent, though, I think she's from London, but I'm not entirely sure. It's either London or maybe a home counties kind of accent. But for today's purposes, I'm going to have two, as Swanee would say, voice talents joining us. And we're going to assume or do her voice in the Southwest accent. So Penny worked as an administrator for the RAF. And for those of you who don't know, in that area around Bristol, Frome, Chippenham, which is Wiltshire, so which bits of Wiltshire and Somerset are actually heavily populated by people who work in the armed forces. So the RAF and the Army. Yeah. So down to Salisbury. You can chip in whenever you like because you're actually much more expert than I am.
Caution is a big one.
Caution, that's right, yeah. And Warminster.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of squaddies in Warminster. So it's not really that weird that she worked in the RAF. And she was married to her first husband in 1973, and he's some guy whose name I read and I couldn't find it again. He's not really material to the story. They had 2 daughters, but after a few years or less, Penny decided that he was abusive, and so she left him. Then she married another guy not long after who he decided, I'm not sure which way this went, that he preferred men to women. So they divorced. So still on the lookout for another love and finding work in the RAF a good place to meet blokes, Penny met Alan Warrendale. Unfortunately, Alan was already married at the time to Beverly.
What a
She
shame.
doesn't make the best choices in men, I think.
There's a theme. And now Alan and Beverly already had 2 daughters of their own and an adopted son. Alan and Penny quickly developed a relationship and embarked on a torrid affair. I say torrid just for dramatic sake, I don't know whether it was or not, which went on for some time. Sadly, Beverly discovered the adultery and was, of course, devastated, which was even worse for her than most people discovering her partner was a cheating rat, because unfortunately she had terminal breast cancer.
Oh,
Oh.
Yes, and Beverly died in 1987 at the age of 36.
Schmidty, do you know when the affair had started?
Let's just say in the last year, maybe,
Okay.
of Beverly's life.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it'd
yeah.
been.
But Alan was really big into Penny, right? So
Oh,
so even if she hadn't died, I think things were pretty bad in terms of, you know, his where his affections lay. Obviously, that left the path clear for Alan and Penny to get married. And then I read that in one account that Alan was so besotted by his daughters off to boarding school, and they tried to send the adopted son back into care. No, I don't want this one anymore. Yeah, so I was a bit shocked by this. It was one thing to send the girls off to boarding school, but it's quite another to say we don't want this adopted kid anymore and try and put him back into care. But that didn't work out for them, so they sent him off to Beverly's parents, for Beverly's parents to raise.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So,
look, it's very difficult to conduct an affair with this child around. Or do you think you could
No.
help her?
Five
Help
On your
someone out?
coattails.
5 months after poor old Beverly died, they announced to the family they were going to get married. So, you know, it wasn't even like we were conducting an affair. It was we just
in
Wait
the
till
way.
you die.
I think the way I read it, or what I read, was something along the lines of Alan was so into Penny that he just wanted to put all of his time and attention into Penny, and so just decided that, you know,
He just wanted to
Someone else
put
can
all
help
his
us.
hoodie in her cha-cha.
Oh.
yes, I think you're quite right. So Alan and Penny had a daughter of their own not long after that, and her name was Isabel. Sorry.
Oh, they had a baby.
Yeah, they had a little baby girl,
Hmm.
and remember, somewhere along the line, Penny had 2 daughters of her own from
Yeah.
her first marriage, which I could never find anything about.
Went to boarding school, never to be seen again.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Yeah, but they had the daughter of their own, Isabel, and probably because he had to pay for boarding school for his daughters that he sent away, he had some money issues. So he went to Beverly's parents and asked for some money, who I think did help him a bit. But then
So
he
Beverly is his ex. Oh,
His-
sorry,
yeah,
his
his-
deceased
his-
wife,
yes.
and said I need some money to help with the girls' education or something, potentially.
I'm guessing
Yeah,
so.
that would make sense. Oh, sorry.
Well, anyway, yeah. He could take them out of boarding school, but anyway, I'm not judging Ellen.
Well, it'd be a big investment. It's
Are
a lot
you
of
not?
money.
I am.
I reckon you're totally judging him.
Well, I don't
I'm
think you
okay
should.
with it.
Yeah. I feel like they just chucked their children away because they were inconvenient.
And then they
So,
get another one.
Yeah, but that's theirs. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway. So Alan had these money issues. You're allowed to laugh. It's all right. Alan had these money issues, and after getting some help from Bev's parents, he ended up taking work in Saudi Arabia. Remember, he worked for the RAF. So while he was on post, Penny got a little bit bored.
Oh,
Penny,
She's a love, isn't she?
Randy. Penny loves a
I
little bit
reckon
of
her
the-
second husband,
She
who
likes
decided
the
he
D.
liked
She
men
likes
more than
the D,
women,
that's
I reckon
right.
she was the problem. She was such a nasty woman that she turned him gay. It works like that, you know.
Would you go so far as to say she's a troller?
You would know better than I.
How she had a fix?
Well, she had changed her job, so she was working in the RAF, and then
Yeah.
she in admin, and then she moved to the armed forces because apparently the money was a little bit better. And this was about in the early 1990s. And she was working as an admin, and she met the dashing Lieutenant Colonel David Jackson, who was
Ooh.
12 years her senior. I'm not sure. In England, do you say lieutenant or do you say lieutenant? Lieutenant. Is it? Okay. So David, no surprise, was also married and had children, but couldn't help himself, as this woman is clearly irresistible.
Did she have the MP?
Military police?
Not for the second husband, she didn't, did she?
That's
No,
true.
it didn't do anything for him. But no, I'm not sure, because I wouldn't have said when she was younger she was unattractive. Remember, the MP is about an unattractive woman who somehow miraculously just pulls the D constantly, when attractive women can't get a date. I just had to wonder. I
Yeah.
just had to explain for Kelly what that expression was.
Didn't we used to call that a slut or like an ugly slut in the back in the 80s?
Maybe, you know.
I don't know.
Now, but I think magic pussy is a nice.
It's easier to
Oh, it's
say.
a much
Rolls off the
nicer
tongue.
phrase.
Someone gave me a bottle of wet pussy last night at the hens night.
Really?
And
What was that?
Yeah. Well, it's meant to be a shot, and I think she's just being funny. And I poured it into. It said drink it. No, it's a shot, but she said drink it, it said drink cold. So I put it in a little glass with some ice.
I thought room temperature was more.
Oh my god, it tastes like Benadryl expectorant. It was Anyway, I know I did say that. And she was like, "Oh, I've only had it once at 2 a.m. when I was shit-faced, so I don't know."
Is that what they normally taste like?
It was very unpleasant.
I was just saying, I think it's best served at room temperature.
It wasn't unpleasant. It just tasted like cough medicine.
Cough medicine, yeah.
Best served at body temperature. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Oh god.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, but the funny thing about that was, though, later on, Rosie came in because she's the one who gave it to me. She said, "Oh, Caroline," she brought the glass and she put it in my face and she goes, "The little boy just spat in it." And I was like, "Well, he's
in the
very
wet pussy.
In my wet pussy." And so I had to take it and throw it in the sink. I'm talking about the drink.
Obviously.
I had to chuck it in the sink.
He's very discerning. He knows a bad drink when he walks past it. I don't know how that happened. But Kelly's laughing because it's his
I'm telling you, dogs are going to be knocking on the door with this poor child.
No, he had lots of supervision. He had a lovely time. As we learned from her relationship with Alan, given that, remember, she was quite happy to conduct an affair with Alan, Penny didn't seem too concerned about the sanctity of marriage or the promise to be faithful to one's partner, which I'm going to do tomorrow. Actually, no, it's not in my vows. So she and David started an affair.
And Alan's still in Saudi Arabia?
He's in Saudi Arabia,
okay.
Yeah. So in 1993, and look, I don't know a lot about people in the armed forces, but it wasn't a well-kept secret, put it that way. So it didn't take very long for Alan to become aware of the affair. He returned from Saudi Arabia, and he found out that David had very kindly also paid to have his 2 dogs, perfectly healthy dogs, by the way, put down. Obviously, they were
Who are these people?
Like the previous children.
Kelly, is this normal?
Stories.
Well, of course it's normal. Yeah, it's totally tame.
There is kill the
quite
pets.
tame.
Oh, goodness, groceries.
Kelly's just waiting for the story to start.
What do you think I call it?
and
Wild
Just also nonchalant,
this
isn't
is
it?
part
We'll
of the
just get the
course. When's
dogs
the
put
story going
down
to start?
too.
You're right. It hasn't
Oh,
started.
no, he paid for it. It's not like he did it
They
himself.
kept walking
Such a
into the
thoughtful
room.
person. I think the dog's going to tell someone their secret.
So, sadly, when he returned from Saudi Arabia, he found out about his dogs, and he obviously confirmed that his wife was being unfaithful to him. And within about, I think it was 3 days, he committed suicide.
Oh!
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going there.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's very upset. Well, sorry, he was very upset. That sounds ridiculous.
Dear God, so he's come
He
out.
was very upset.
I know,
Oh,
sorry. So that was very bad. At his funeral, Penny was pretty much unmoved. Didn't give a shit that she was having an affair and that it probably caused him to kill himself. And didn't show any real grief at the loss of her husband.
But people knew. That would be a bit awkward, wouldn't it?
And his family were understandably unimpressed by her.
Well, look, the way that this woman operates, she thought, oh, that worked out quite well, all things considered. That's one other person I don't have to ship off or kill. Job done.
There was there's no evidence of this, but there was a suggestion, possibly by Alan's brother, I think, or people in Alan's family, that she may have even put the idea in his head, and she may have actually manipulated him to commit suicide, or complete suicide, whatever is the correct.
Melissa Carter?
My man.
Melissa Caddick? No,
who was the one who texted?
Oh, yeah. Well,
A bit of
it was
death coaching.
It might, maybe, but there was no evidence. There weren't 700,000 text messages saying just
do it.
Yeah. So Penny's now free to remarry. But what of David? Well, of course, David's marriage wasn't working out that well for him either, and his wife finding about.
His wife wouldn't kill herself, so they had to think about what they were going to do.
Some people just are so
about
themselves, aren't they?
She just divorced him. She went the sort of standard route. So, his wife found out about the cheating, they divorced, allowing David and Penny to get married in 1996.
How many is she up to
This is
now?
her fourth. Yeah. David actually adopted Isabel because Isabel would have been about 3 at this point. No, in 1993, Ellen died, so she was very young, right? And the couple raised her with Isabel actually thinking that he was her natural father.
Yeah.
So they
Right.
pretty much
erased,
we won't mention Ellen.
Ellen.
We'll just all the stepsisters or any of his siblings or anything like that. We'll just pretend that never happened. In 1998, which is pretty early in their marriage, they got married in 96. David's son Gavin also committed suicide.
What?
Oh my lord.
Yeah, and he left a note saying he didn't want to end up like his father, a cheating rat. Now, I've no doubt that this was a terrible blow to David, who then went on to suffer with depression as he processed his grief. And of course, he would have felt responsible because the son's citing that basically, I don't want to be like my dad, so I'm going to kill myself.
Ooh.
So around this time,
There's other ways of not being like your dad, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Cutting off all contact and
That's a weird leap to make, really, isn't it? Unless you've actually been cheating on someone else, you just want to punish your dad.
Putting your dick in your pants. That'd do
Yeah,
it.
you could do that too, but I look, obviously there's probably more to Gavin's situation than just that, but that's what he put in his note.
Yeah.
Around this time, obviously, David is, really struggling with his emotional state, and they were stationed in Germany in 1998, and David actually became quite violent towards Penny. There were several instances that were testified in the later court case that comes up. David would smash things, like smash up her keepsakes of her previous marriages and all that sort of stuff. And at one point, their daughter came home from school to find Penny pushed up against the wall with a bloody nose. On another occasion, when David's family were visiting them in Germany, so I can't remember who, but a bunch of people came over, he held a knife to Penny's throat, and it took 3 guests to pull him away from her. But David did seek help and got some counselling, and over some time he did come out of his depression and ceased to be violent. And Penny and David went on to eventually retire and settle in the lovely town, and here we go, of Barrow in Somerset. So they're married for over 20 years at this point.
Oh, wow.
They like travelling, and they've been on several cruises. And there's no real connection to the cruises in this story, but I enjoyed that. I read that over and over in all these different stories, all these different affiliate things, like it was some kind of defining factor about them, So apparently we're joining some kind of club of cruises. And if anything happened to us, they'll say, well, they liked cruising. From the outside, they seemed like a happy couple. Everyone thought they were,
A happy couple.
A happy couple, that's right. But there were instances where they would bicker and fight. Then along came COVID.
Oh.
Yes, as we
We're that far down.
Yeah, how old are they now by COVID?
They're in their 60s. Well, actually, he's 12 years older, so
He's in his 90s.
She's 65, 66 at the time. He's 78, 77, 78.
Okay.
Right.
And as we would all recall, we were in and out of lockdowns, so whether here or in the UK. And we all developed ways to still connect with our families who didn't live with us. But also some people found that being isolated with their, spouse or whatever was a real downer on the relationship because you couldn't escape them. And I just think it is worth remembering that time because, we've come out of it now and we're all a bit free and it's sort of a distant memory in some ways. But from March 2020 onward, when no one knew what was happening and everyone was experiencing a lot of anxiety and we had no choice to stay home and stay put, you did at times feel a bit trapped. Penny found herself living with David with no way to get out. And he was nice one day, not nice the next. Now, he wasn't beating her, but he would chuck a raz and do things that were pretty demeaning to her. So, she'd prepare a dinner and he'd just throw it down the disposal, insulting what she's doing and being he was a bit of a dick. In December 2020, the police were called following a row over a TV remote control. The defendant told officers she'd locked her husband in their conservatory so that he'd calm down, but he smashed his way out with a poker from the wood-burning stove. And I believe in that altercation, he may have also assaulted her.
So she called the police?
I think so, yeah. So she claimed that he'd been acting out of character following an operation to replace the battery in a deep brain implant used to manage a condition that caused his hands and limbs to tremble. Now, I don't know anything about brain surgery, but putting a battery in your deep brain that needs to be changed at some point in time, I would assume, because batteries don't last forever, it seems weird, but it's really not that material. An officer told her the incident would be recorded as an assault and the couple should not be under the same roof that night. When an officer telephoned her a few days later, Penny said she and her husband had sorted out their problem and he'd turned the voltage on his pacemaker down after a call had been put into the hospital. So apparently he was juicing on too many volts or something. And he was back to his normal self and had no recollection of what had happened. Assuming that he had some kind of medical episode. But it's interesting because later on he's alleged to make a statement that suggests to you that perhaps he did know what was going on. Anyway, so on February the 13th, 2021, Isabel had organised for Penelope and David to enjoy a gourmet meal of crab, lobster and steak to celebrate Penny's 66th birthday. Given it was in lockdown, Isabel and her partner were to join them in the festivities by eating the same meal at the other end of a Zoom call, and I think we've all been there. Penny had prepared the meal and added a side dish of bubble and squeak. Now, for our non-UK listeners, can I now, just to introduce, I have two new guests in the room, Helen and Kane in the room. Now,
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Hiya.
so tell us about bubble and squeak. What is bubble and squeak?
Bubble and squeak is a leftover dish for using up boiled or roasted potatoes and mixed with Brussels sprouts or cabbage and occasionally carrot. And you fry it off in beef dripping and you serve it up generally for breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can top it off with a bit of brown sauce, HP preferably.
Oh,
I do like a bit of HP.
I had a bit of that this morning with breakfast.
I'm
Hangover.
sorry. I think HP is exactly what it says. It's just brown.
Oh, I like it.
Oh no! I
You're
think
not
just
fan?
I like barbecue sauce and I like fruit chutneys, but I find brown sauce just brown. That's
Delicious.
What about
nondescript.
Worcestershire?
Oh, I love
Do you like
it.
that?
It's
Yeah.
got flavour. It's got anchovies in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so the first time I ever had bubble and squeak was actually in Australia, but it was made for me by a British person, and I had this idea of it being this, delicious, something amazing because it was
No.
talked up so much. No, it's just refried vegetable.
No, it's
I mean,
leftovers essentially, isn't it? And I know
Brilliant.
it. If someone said to me, I would have thought it was a breakfast food. So I don't know if that's where you're headed with it, but I would be surprised if you were going to the effort of having like gourmet lobster,
Here we go. Yes.
prawns, etc. It would make no sense to have bubble and squeak with that at all.
And I think David felt the same way.
He wasn't thinking this is a festive
No,
spread
this-
you're putting on.
I cannot find anywhere what he actually said about the bubble and squeak, but
Yeah.
basically he got angry about the fact that she had served bubble and squeak with crab, lobster, and
I think
expensive
that's,
think
steak.
that's right.
that's fair enough.
So do I.
Okay,
That is
well,
an absolute
I know what he
food
said.
crime.
He said, "What a load of old shit!" And
Yeah.
you can take your bubble and squeak.
well, maybe that is what he said. And as you say, it was a breakfast dish. This was served with a gourmet dinner, so it was a bit odd.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
it's a
anyway.
food crime.
Yeah.
Did,
Well-
she survive the episode? Like the
Yeah,
dinner?
yeah, she did, because this aberration of a side
She
dish.
was lucky.
She was, but this total aberration of a side dish caused David to get very angry, apparently. Speaking about her husband, she told police,
His face changed into something I had seen so many times. I knew at the end of the call there would be trouble.
she said she went to bed in fear and put a knife under her pillow for protection.
Oh,
I felt I couldn't do this anymore and tried to take my own life by slitting my wrist. I told David I'd had enough and couldn't go on.
According to Penny, he responded, "Get on with it then."
oh, sorry.
I then thought, why should it be me? It's you.
He then lay down on the spare bed and goaded her into stabbing him, calling her pathetic and telling her to go back to bed. So she slashed his chest with a knife. She then took the knife and went to the kitchen, where she wrote a confession, which I'll ask one of our voice talents, probably Helen actually, to read in a moment. David then went into the lounge and called the police, walking into the kitchen and saying,
See how it feels to have the police phoned on you.
"Oh," and that's what I was talking about before, because she'd called the police on him a few months earlier, and
Oh, yeah.
apparently he didn't remember it. So he told the 999 operator his wife had attacked him, and he could then be heard screaming in pain as she stabbed him twice again.
Oh,
She then took over the call and calmly told the call handler,
I've killed my husband, or tried to, because I've had enough.
Wow.
That's as good a reason as any.
Now, normally I would play the 999 call, which is available online, but as we have our special guests, I thought they could narrate it. So here's how the call went.
Are you with him now?
Well, I might just go and stab him again, but
All right. Do not stab him again.
Perfect, that's so right.
why?
Okay, just listen to my voice. Okay, stay on the line with me.
I'm compos mentis.
Okay, are you with the patient now?
Well, I'm in the lounge and he's in the kitchen, bleeding to death with any luck.
All right, so just stay on the line with me.
Look, this is not what you're paid to deal with. It's not fair.
Okay, well, ultimately, madam, I am listening to your voice, and you are the help I have available. So we need to help him. Okay?
No, I'm not. I don't wish to.
All right, madam. How many times have you stabbed him?
I did it once.
You did the once.
And then he said I wouldn't do it again. So I did it twice more.
So, okay. So in total, how many times?
3 times?
You do the math.
3 times. Okay.
Once I thought I'd get his heart.
Oh,
Well, he hasn't got one. And then twice in the abdomen.
Oh, that was excellent, thank you. So the operator,
Bravo.
very good, yes.
Kane, you've definitely got a career on the
Kane
phones.
smashed it, yeah.
I know.
Did very well. So the operator kept her online for 18 minutes and asked her to put pressure on the wounds, check on him.
She
While the
kept saying
police
no.
were placed, no, she's had nothing to do with it. Apparently, he said, is he still responding? And she's like, are you still responding? Like she was just, not having it.
Oh,
So once the police arrived at the scene, they asked Penny to go outside, and at that point, she's wearing only a pair of Marks and Spencer's PJs. And it was February, which is freezing cold, and there is footage of her interactions with them on their body cams. And just for the PJs is important because the media, of course, dubbed her the M&S pajama murderer. And now, again, for dramatic effect, can I ask Kane if you wouldn't mind playing the role of PC Plod? And then, of course, I'm going to ask you, Helen, to continue to be Penny. So at this point, they've arrived and they're extracting her from the house.
Hello, madam. Do you just want to step outside for a minute? Can you come outside?
Yes. Can I put my coat on? He's on the kitchen floor.
Okay, at this moment in time, if you just listen to my colleague, under arrest, suspicion of attempted murder, mate, to Penny, under arrest, suspicion of attempted murder.
Yes, definitely. Hopefully it's not attempted.
oh.
So you do not have to say anything, but it may help your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, anything that can later be relied on in court. Anything you do say can be given in evidence.
Is that right?
I would have said it off the top of my head. It's slightly different, but
Yeah, okay, right. So Kane's an expert. Anyway.
Can I get my coat? Just in there. I admit it all. He's on the kitchen floor. There's nothing nasty. I'm certainly not. My coat's in the ouch.
you all right?
With any luck, they'll be too late.
All right.
So then the police are basically getting her details, and this has been redacted in what you see online. So there are silent moments, and then they go on to basically one of the PCs is trying to get the police. Yeah.
Get the ambulance in. We need to start CPR.
Oh, no.
Yes, we need to do CPR.
Should have stabbed him a bit more.
Oh.
Then we cut to another scene.
Yes, I stabbed him. Once because he's an aggressive bully and nasty, and I've had enough. When he said you wouldn't do it, I did it twice more.
And then finally, she's in the back of a police car, cuffed and talking about her coat.
My coat's in the front, grey wardrobe.
That's the police, sorry.
My coat's in the front, grey rock. Okay, it might be a while, but I'll try and get. There's obviously a lot going on.
Oh, with any luck, it'll be too late.
My advice is My advice is don't talk about it now, okay?
No, I have no intention of not agreeing with you with what I've done. I know what I've done. I know why I've done it. And if I've not done it properly, I'll be really annoyed.
Oh my word.
And then later she is rearrested.
Okay, Penny, I'm arresting you for murder.
It's murder now, not attempted murder. Oh, good.
Oh,
Perfect. So she did refuse to answer police questions and instead provided a prepared statement, the confession I mentioned earlier. And here is the confession.
To whom it may concern, I have taken so much abuse over the years. Look at my records in Germany. But he was a good daddy. However, the man slipped tonight, and that was unforgivable. I accept my punishment. May he rot in hell. The note had "sorry about my spelling" written on the edge of the page.
I thought her spelling was all right. I couldn't read her handwriting, though. The press carried on about her asking for a coat and slippers repeatedly, but she's just stabbed someone, is likely to be in a bit of shock, and even if she seems calm, and it's freezing cold, and she's 66. So personally, I don't think her repeatedly asking for a coat is that odd. All right, well, I would like to thank our voice talent. They did a great job.
Well done,
well
guys.
done.
Thank you for letting us join.
So Penny's trial took place not long after, which I thought was quite quick. Penny's defence was that she'd been the victim of abuse by David, coercive control of finances, TV viewing, who she could see and where she could go. The previous police reports for disturbances between them, previous evidence of physical abuse, and all the sordid details of their lives together, including evidence which showed that she had to get a tattoo on her bottom saying she was the property of the deceased to stop his jealous and possessive behaviour. His family gave statements, of course, that this wasn't the case. David was gentle and considerate and not given to fits of anger or any nastiness. Eventually, the jury found Penelope Jackson guilty of murder, and she was sentenced to life with a minimum of 18 years imprisonment. Here are some of the sentencing remarks available on crimeline.co.uk. This is the judge, right, at the end of the trial. And I don't know that I agree with all of this, but I just think it's probably worth it's a good bit of context. David Jackson was 78 years of age when you murdered him. He was a kind, gentle and caring man. He was a loving father and grandfather who had battled through a number of serious illnesses and yet was still enjoying a well-earned retirement, having spent many years serving his country in the armed forces. He had plans for the year ahead and no doubt well beyond. All that was brought to an end on the 13th of February when you chose to stab him to death. That was a vindictive and cruel act on your part. I have no doubt whatsoever that you wrote the confession note in advance of inflicting the first wound to his chest. I have no doubt you were aiming for his heart. As he was on the telephone speaking to the 999 operator, you stabbed him twice more. You chose to stab him in the abdomen because you wanted to ensure that he would die. I think that's probably true. The confession that you wrote was composed in anticipation of achieving that end. I have no doubt that you intended to kill your husband and that this was a premeditated murder. Your own confession recognised that fact as it suggested two possibilities, premeditation or self-defence. Your actions had nothing to do with that latter concept. Having inflicted fatal injuries, you then spent 18 minutes talking to the emergency services, during which time you refused all their pleas to go to David Jackson's aid. He was alive for much of that 18-minute period and would have been able to hear what you were saying. At one stage, in response to an inquiry as to whether he was still alert, you called out to him by way of inquiry, but did so in a mocking fashion and with no thought of helping him. At other points, you even contemplated stabbing him again and said so. Your behaviour during that call evidences a shocking level of callousness on your part. So why does a 67-year-old woman of good character choose to murder her partner of 28 years? Despite professing to still love him, you sought in this trial to portray David Jackson as a monster. Whilst there were no doubt tensions in the marriage, points of friction that lockdown will have accentuated, I am quite sure that he was nothing like the person you claimed. You were both strong-willed people, different characters in the sense that you are outgoing and he was less so, but that would have been complementary to a degree. There had been violence back in 1998 at a time when your husband was, as your daughter Isabel described, a broken man following the suicide of his son Gavin. Such behaviour then, even in the circumstances that it came to take place, was of course very wrong. But your husband received treatment for the depressive state he was in at that low point in his life, and other evidence makes clear that you found it in yourself to forgive him. And thereafter the marriage continued, and through what must at many points have been a very happy time. In the months leading up to the killing, I have no doubt you were unhappy. The events of the 23rd of December, when your husband broke the glass of the conservatory door in an effort to leave the property, clearly had an impact on you. The footage that you took of that argument represented a deliberate attempt on your part to goad and torment your husband. He did not support your claim that you lived in fear of him. After he left that night, you contacted him and asked him to come back. There was then a very happy family Christmas with your daughter and son-in-law. I've no doubt you reached a stage when you wanted out of the marriage. You knew that your daughter would support you if you elected to separate. There are many other options to open to you other than killing the person with whom you have lived for all those years. By choosing to do so, you took the life of another human being, and that is a terrible thing to do. It represents a burden that you and all other family members will have to bear for the rest of your lives. You didn't just kill a man who you once loved, but you also deprived many others of someone they loved as well. There was no justification for doing so. Their memory of him will always be tarnished by the manner of his death and the way you have sought to portray him after depriving him of his life. During your 4 days giving evidence, I did not detect a shred of genuine remorse on your part for the terrible crime that you have committed. He goes on, blah, 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 and basically says, I have no doubt that you killed your husband. He basically says, I'm giving you life imprisonment, minimum term 18 years. There you go. So that's what the judge said. What a judgy much? I mean, honestly.
Oh, but
I found that a little bit,
were they besties?
Yeah. Well,
How did he know what he was like?
Correct. I mean, it's so definitive. That's my part that I have an issue with what the judge is saying. No, you definitely did this. He was a lovely man. You're a callous, nasty person. Oh, come on, buddy. Obviously, the prosecution did a good job, but I was a little bit surprised. Anyway,
is there evidence of her being manipulative or?
There was a testimony from other members of the family, mostly on David's side, of course, that said that she used to bait him. She was always looking to. She was a bit troublesome. She'd start the fights. She'd start family dramas, that sort of stuff. She was the trouble, but it's all from his family's side. Her own daughter.
Most of her family seemed to have disappeared. So her two daughters from her original marriage, then the stepchildren were all shipped off anyway, so they had no connection. So Isabel's really the only person.
Isabel's the only person, yeah. And Isabel does acknowledge that there was violence when she was younger in the early 90s. Yeah. She has memory of that. She says, other than that, the family, they would fight. Everyone has pretty much said they had a turbulent relationship. They would blow up and fight with each other over time, but they were as bad as each other is pretty much where people have landed on it. Not everyone, though. I'll get onto that in a sec. And I think Isabel's position is kind of, it's real. I can't even imagine what it would be like for a person who loved both parents to have one parent kill the other. So she's, even in that letter / confession that she leaves, where she says he was a good daddy, Isabel's response is, yes, he was a great daddy. He was always there for me. He was everything you'd ever want in a father. And then my mum kills him. So for her, the mother, she's lost who she thought her mother was. Her mother was always there for her too, but she didn't expect her to become a dad killer, a daddy slayer. So apart from the actual testimony of violence, I'm not sure how much I can really listen to Isabel. Effectively, they've said, they had a bad patch at the beginning when he tried to kill her and bashed her around a bit, but he got help, and after that, he was lovely. There's nothing else to see here, and the thing is, I think now we're in this world, world has changed, and we've become much more aware that abuse comes in so many different forms. It's not just about bashing someone or putting a knife to their throat or threatening their lives. There's all this coercive control. It's just shit, gaslighting, things that people say to destroy your self-confidence and put you in a position where you won't leave them or you won't do anything and just become a shell of yourself. Now, I'm not saying that is what has happened. That's what she is saying what's happened. Her whole kind of in the end, it's like, I'm done. I'm over it. I don't care. I'm going to go to jail. I'd rather go to jail than live with this guy anymore. Right? My cup runs over on putting up with this. Her whole attitude, the way she responds I know we laughed at it because it's quite shocking the way she's just like, oh, well, obviously, I'll just stab him some more and, hopefully.
I hope it's not attempted.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully I've actually killed him. I kind of don't doubt that she did premeditate murdering him, but she wouldn't have premeditated necessarily murdering him 10, 15 years earlier. It's not like she spent 28 years thinking about killing him. I think it did get to a point where she just had enough.
It's enough.
And yeah, she could have left, but we've talked about this before where people, it's easy from the outside to say, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you get out?
I'm trying to understand. So I don't doubt that she'd had enough, but had she had enough because he'd actually
Bubble
done
and squeak.
so much to her? Yeah, bubble and squeak. That he'd done so much to her that she felt that was the best thing to do? Or was she just wired a bit weird and fed up?
There might be a bit of that too.
That's what it feels like.
Her response to her third husband's suicide is sort of points to the fact she's wired a bit weird.
Yeah,
her own emotional response.
So her first husband was abusive.
Yeah, and apparently she just left.
Yeah, so why didn't she
just leave this time?
It just, I don't know.
It doesn't ring true.
Doesn't quite add up, does it? There's something not right about it.
No, I think not, and it's unfortunate. I think that if that is the case, these sorts of things don't do real victims of abuse any favours at all. In fact, quite the opposite.
I think she was a real victim of abuse, though. I don't believe she wasn't a victim of abuse. I think she probably had enough wherewithal and strength that she could have taken a different route. She didn't have to kill him, but I don't doubt that he was abusive. His own brother, David's own brother, came out in defence of Penny, saying that David was an absolute bully and a real nasty pasty. He talks about it. He's saying she was always lovely and bubbly, and from his perspective, this is David's brother. His perspective, she was this lovely personality. She's got a big personality, definitely. He just always felt sorry for her, basically, because he saw that David was a pretty nasty individual. But of course, the flip side is other members, his sister and that, have come out and saying how bullshit he was lovely and she was a narcissist. And of course, Alan's family have now come out of the woodwork saying, yeah, well, she didn't even respond to, our brother's death. She just didn't give a shit. She had an affair. She's a narcissist. She doesn't care about anyone. She just trades up husbands. She's got her heart kind of thing. So I just think, for me, it is difficult because. But I did like this quote from her, and Helen's left the room. But for me, the question is it cold-blooded murder, premeditated, or a spur-of-the-moment reaction? And in her own words, this wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the whole bundle. So, it wasn't just one more thing. It was just the whole lot. It was just like, I am done. Yeah, and as I said, I'm pretty sure he was controlling and abusive, but yeah, she shouldn't have killed him. What I am interested in, though, when you talk about it not being wired very well, and if you imagine that you've been in a world where, you spent 20-something years with someone, and we accept that he was abusive or he was gaslighting or, he's nasty, he wasn't a nice person, surely that would have impacted her mental state as well. And I didn't see any evidence in any of the statement from the judge or anything to suggest that...
Acknowledging that.
They even acknowledged that over years of abuse, maybe... her own mental state was pushed to the edge. And remember, it was in lockdown. So I think this is
she also abusive?
Yeah,
and
I think so.
So, I don't know. I think when you're in those sorts of relationships, it's not like she's an absolute victim. I think she's the problem because and I guess this is what the judge is trying to say. The reaction seems...
The judge is saying you're the problem.
Way out of line with the level of abuse that she got is what I'm feeling. I don't know. Is that... Do you think that there's evidence of that, or?
I'll think about that. I'll respond to that about something else I read. So there is a group of people who... She's appealed the sentence, by the way, but she's appealed it based on the grounds that she didn't get a very fair trial, in her opinion, or her defence team's opinion, because there were all these memes made about her as well, and all of that, the body cam stuff that we kind of reenacted with the help of Kane and Helen.
Yep.
So in the public...
All in the public... Right, and so people made up their mind about it, and she does seem completely remorseless because at that moment she is. That is
No,
what
but
she
even
So,
even in the trial, she was remorseless, wasn't she?
according to him, he says, I haven't seen any remorse. And
The judge and
for all
judge.
we know, she might have a personality thing she might be on the spectrum. She might not have that kind of emotional response to certain things. I don't know this woman from Adam, right? Anyway, what I was going to say is that group of people who are complaining about and petitioning for her appeal to go ahead have also pointed out, and we've talked about this before, that they've cited 2 cases of men, one who strangled a woman to death when he was having rough sex with her accidentally, and he got 4.5 years or something in jail for that. And another guy who murdered his wife for whatever reason was not a victim of abuse from the wife, and he got a much lesser term. So they're saying this judge has just gone right. Like if we were in the days of capital punishment, he would have had her hung. That's where I'm taking it. Like that's where I'm getting. And I just think I get where you're coming from, Clarky, but I just think there was this real interesting kind of. I don't understand sentencing. We've talked about this before. Whether it's someone who's done horrendous crimes get 3 minutes for it, and someone who's done something that's really not that big a deal in our opinion, and they get 500 years. And I don't think it's not a big deal to have murdered her husband. I'm not saying that. I think it is a big deal, absolutely. And he talks about the effect on the rest of the family, etc. But I just think if he was abusing her all that time, he robbed her of 28 years of her life as well. So I think they're both victims, and I think they're both assholes. What do you think?
Harsh but fair.
There is something about them being a bit of a match. And it's hard. It is hard not to look at how they arrived at coming together. And, I know you can't necessarily look at a situation and go, well, that equals that. But there were a couple of decisions that were made along the way that I would have to say they did sort of paint a picture or gives me some opinions of them. Like the way she went from one to the next. It was always like she had to have somebody.
Yeah.
And
that's not uncommon, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
No, that's not uncommon, but it's I don't know if it sort of speaks somewhat to her, not so much mental state, but the way she approached things. And
she's a bit fickle.
Yeah,
maybe
sort of
just
like
slips around and nothing seems to touch her. She's a bit Teflon-y. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I made a point about the kids. I just think that's reprehensible. Whether the dogs were put down or the kids were shipped off, like there's something disconnected emotionally in there.
Yeah, it does seem odd that they stayed together because her form would suggest that she wouldn't have done that. She would have just found someone else or found a way out earlier. Because it's a long time to have been together. The other stuff happened in a relatively quick succession compared to the marriage.
In a jointly abusive relationship, who's the victim?
Is it the dead guy or is it the one with life imprisonment? Hang on a minute. When you say jointly abusive, right? Do not debate. I mean, people just said she was a bit nasty. She'd give as good as she got. She didn't have the financial control. I do think that if there are scales of balance here, I tend to think that the scales would tip slightly in his favour. He had more control.
But then was she? Does she kill him because he's got more control rather than because she's a victim? Like I just don't see her as a victim, and maybe I'm missing something.
I do, and that's fundamentally different. I don't feel sorry.
You do see her as a victim?
Yeah, I don't feel sorry for her. Like I don't necessarily think a great carriage of injustice has happened here. And it is tricky. I don't want to victim blame because the victim is the dead person, but I think he contributed to his demise.
Ouch.
I do by being a prick. And let there be a lesson to people who think that they can be pricky out there. You might get a prick with a knife 3 times.
Jesus.
I think they're both toxic. I don't think they should have stayed together.
It's not too late to call off.
I'm just looking at my engagement ring, which I've just cleaned, and my beautifully manicured nails. I mean, you could take the position of he was perfectly fine and she just murdered him, but what's in it for her? Like, you know what I mean? Swanee, do you know what I mean?
Maybe because she's an asshole.
But she's going to jail. At no point does she say, no, I didn't do it. Like,
no, I get that.
She threw herself under the bus.
But she still thought that she would be able to play the I've been abused card. Yeah. Well, it wasn't like she was just saying, that's how she played it. She didn't play that down. She totally played that up. Well, I've had enough. Enough is enough. So I had to murder him. I just got to that. I don't care what the consequences are. I've had to murder him. So,
so you're
do
right.
With that what you will. But, obviously I've been horrendously abused to have got to this point.
So do you think then that Well, I mean, she just wanted him dead, and that's why she did it. And
But that's what it feels like.
she thought she'd just get off because she'd been abused.
No, I don't think she thought she'd get off. I thought she thinks she's in a better spot killing him and going to jail rather than living with him.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
I don't think it's because he was as abusive as what she's saying.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen people who are in relationships who have, you know, constant 911 calls or, you know, visits to the hospital or whatever.
Some people have experienced secret abuse though, where they don't talk about it. Yeah.
I don't doubt it, but I'm just not seeing the abuse that she's talking about. And
I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people didn't either. And so
I don't see it. It's not spelled out quite clearly enough for me. To me, it feels like there are a couple who brought out the worst in each other.
Yeah.
So that, you know, what was the worst in each other pre-COVID was somewhat bearable or manageable.
Yeah. Well, I could leave the house
a year into COVID, having nowhere to go but to be with each other constantly, that would have just escalated to a point that it was unbearable. But, you know, so I suspect that lockdown played a pretty significant role in the fact that she just thought, I'm done.
All right, so are we happy with the situation? He's dead, she's in jail, or do we want to do some sentencing of our own?
I think she should be in jail.
Yeah, I think
there were situations, you know, like when you start to attack somebody, right? Listen to me, you know.
Do I?
Yeah, you
know.
Sorry,
sorry, could you just rephrase that?
I better rephrase that. In many of the crimes, I will rephrase it. In many of the crimes that we have looked at, there are points along that timeline where, you know, what is premeditated, what is not premeditated, when something happens. And these pair are still at this bickering bullshit thing where he's going, you know, stab me or whatever else.
Like,
Yeah. And then she's just like, no, I'll show you. You want to challenge me? Oh, I'll win. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It does feel very childish, doesn't it?
Why not friendship?
They just totally brought the worst out in each other and were just it's ridiculous in the end.
Yeah, and so I felt probably a good sentence for both of them is to go to jail together.
Go to jail together?
Why not? I mean, just torture each other. They're both awful as far as I can tell.
Yeah, but he died.
Yeah, and she murdered him. That's a bit
different. Well, I'm just saying that he comes back to life. Go and deal with
it. He's inside. Go to the body and make sure he's dead.
They've got no means to murder one another in jail, but I'm just saying that they end up back together with each other and just...
I don't know that he belonged in jail necessarily.
Well, that's because I don't think either of you have really bought into the idea that he was abusive.
Correct.
I think,
I'm struggling with the level of just how abusive, in quotation marks, he was.
I think my punishment for her is to turn her into a fly and put her on the wall of a real domestic abuse relationship so she can see... I don't doubt that she feels like she was victimized, but I think she's so narcissistic that, you know, anything that is done to her that she doesn't want is abuse, or that's what she's claiming, whereas I think plenty of people get abused a whole lot more than what I've heard she's had to put up with and don't kill people for it.
Yeah, and some do, though. I do believe she was abused. I think he had it in him to be violent. He'd already demonstrated that earlier, whether he got counselling or not. And my mother has always said to her 3 daughters, if a man raises his hand to you once, you leave immediately because they will do it again. And, you know, she always had a very staunch position on that. So I do not find it difficult to believe that at certain points in their relationship, over that 28-year span, beyond the original 1998 incidents, that he could have been violent towards her. And he certainly, if he wasn't violent, I think he had issues with managing his emotional response, which is what created that initial abuse in the first case. So I don't find it difficult to believe that he was abused. And I'm not about to say, you know, someone else's abuse is worse than yours.
Yeah. I
don't think that's the right position to take when we're talking about these sorts of things. I still will say, yes, don't murder people. I'm not vindicating. I'm not, what's the word, Carla? You know, advocating. I'm not advocating for murdering partners.
No, I know.
But I think they are both assholes, as I said earlier. So that's
why
I'm happy to let them stay together.
Her daughter had said that she saw him holding, or a family member, someone saw him holding a knife to him.
Oh, 3 family members had to pull him off her. He had a knife to her throat.
That's pretty
The
major.
daughter saw him hold her up against a wall and she had a blood nose. He'd smacked her in the nose. This was all the Germany stuff. My point is, that was a long time
late
ago.
90s?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
back to Mum's point, if a man is violent with you once, he can be violent with you again. You don't give them the opportunity to keep doing that.
But there's no evidence of that, is there?
No. Apart from the police report where he smashed through the conservatory in December 2020.
Which is not violence against her.
It went down as an assault, and that you're right, because from a police perspective, I think they reported it as assault, but I'm not sure that he actually physically assaulted her. I don't think he did, Do we just wait till we get smacked, or do we also take into account emotional, financial, all the other forms of abuse?
Well, but again, I don't know that.
You don't know where the evidence of it is, It's a word against, when you've got one person who's dead and can't speak for themselves and someone who's saying, this is what happened. And so you're on the judge's side who said...
You'll often see... Well, I'm not as judgy as the judge, but I just don't see...
oh my God, can we found someone who's judgier than you? Wow.
It is unlike me. I just don't see it. And I think, I've seen relationships where people are financially controlled and you can find evidence of it. It's not that hard.
It should be
to
in
do.
the bank accounts, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think she's been able to prove that. I don't think, and this is what I'm saying, I think a case like this does harm to people who
I agree with
actually get that violence or that abuse,
I agree that people who overplay domestic violence or make false claims of domestic violence absolutely undermine and do terrible damage for those people who need the support and actually should be able to come forward and have these situations taken seriously. I 100% agree with you on that, Bucky.
I think they were nasty to each other. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they were good for each other, but I don't think the abuse warranted her response. Whereas I think in other cases, the abuse sometimes does warrant that.
Yeah, right. And it doesn't happen,
Well, sometimes it does, and you go, well, cop that, mate. You had it coming. Yeah, so I think he certainly got the raw end of the deal just because he was killed. Up until that point, they were probably, in some ways, you'd turn them into peas and put them in the same pod. I just think she is making it out that she's the one who had to put up with it all and bear it all, but I reckon she probably gave as good as she could.
And that's what his family said. Yeah.
Well,
I can't remember the full storyline, but I remember loving it. Roald Dahl wrote a book called The Twits, and they were 2 horrible people. Did you ever read The Twits?
Yeah, I do remember that.
I can't remember how, but somehow they end up kind of shrinking into nothingness. Does anyone remember?
Yeah, I can't remember the storyline.
Well, I feel like prior to her murdering him, they were kind of like the Twits. They just
100%.
fester away with each other and kind of just,
The murder is the bit that's out of character. The rest of it, you kind of go, yeah, you two were,
bad news bears.
You hated each other at times and all that sort of stuff. But to do what she did, and as callously as she did, and all of that, I kind of go, oh, not sure, love.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm very happy for it's a hung jury because you can't get a consensus that.
I think you're the problem.
I'm the problem. You're right. 12 angry men, and I'm the one standing there going, no.
I'm the problem. It's me.
All right. Swanee, have you got anything to say for me?
No, I don't.
I don't know where we ended with this. I think we've ended with me saying, all right, it's not justifiable. And I by the way, I didn't start the story thinking it was justifiable at all, question whether or not she should go to jail. I just thought it was funny when she had that whole body cam and
cracker.
I'll stop her a bit more.
I almost liked her at that point because if she really was. And I know exactly what I'm doing, and
and I hope I've done a decent job.
Stop it!
Don't go in there yet. Just let him
Stop
die.
trying to say this didn't happen. Stop trying to think that I might be defending myself. I did it. He deserved it.
So then, I guess the question comes down to, she may still feel that way, and in fact, I think she does. And I think she said something like, "I don't care if I go to jail. I'm happy that I blocked him off." Thank you very much. I thought that was amusing. I know it's not a wedding card.
Oh, that bit where she stabbed him twice more, that was a cracker.
I'm sorry. I just found the way she spoke about it, and I think Helen did a good read of it.
She did a great
Yeah,
job.
they were great.
She really...
And Kane should definitely be in service.
Kane's a cracker, wasn't he? And he sounded just like someone from an insurance company, you know. I just have to read you the terms and conditions, if you wouldn't mind, you know. If you...
Oh, please don't stab him again, madam. Please just listen to my voice.
You're the only person I have available to help me now. Is that okay? No, I'm not going to help. Jeepers. All right. Well, thank you for the pre-wedding podcast. I know we squeezed it in, and you know that's the dedication that we have to our listeners, isn't it? That we wouldn't pause for a moment. Even a wedding won't stop us recording. And on that note, as I say every other time, miss you already.
Goodbye now.
Ciao.
I'll be back now, you hear?
All right, we love her.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.